Monster of the Month Club! It's your friendly neighborhood mad scientist, me, Laura E. And in today's video, I am going to take you through the process of customizing my very own Kiki's Delivery Service doll. Stay tuned, and I'll be offering commentary over the course of the video. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to let me know below.
This is part 2 of my Kiki's Delivery Service doll customization video. Part 1 is linked below if you are interested in checking that out. I have a book that I found of how to make adorable animal dolls, and I filched the pattern idea for Kiki's dress from a sweater pattern in that book, and I modified it so it was big enough for Kiki. I had the book next to me and I was kind of tracing a similar shape, and then I would put Kiki down over the sketch to see roughly that it would fit. Then I was checking the instructions to see how it was constructed so I could adjust the pattern so as to best fit those needs. So it was a lot of checking and adjusting. And then I cut it out, made sure it was about the shape I wanted, made sure the armholes were big enough, cut the little curves, because it is pretty much organic shape, so you have lots of curves on it. And then I made the arm pattern piece to fit the curves of the dress, and then I cut that out. And then I traced the pattern out on the fabric, and again, like the body piece, instead of folding it over and sewing the front to back and only having to trace one piece of the pattern onto the fabric, because of the way it's sewn, I had to trace the front and the back and then each arm, because you sew the front to the back and then sew the arms and then sew the whole front piece to the whole back piece. Because the fabric is so thin, I just used a ballpoint pen to trace it. I know there are special marking pens or whatever, but I've really never had any luck with those. And plus, I wasn't gonna wash this dress afterward. I guess they have the ones that fade, but I just have never had any luck. So I just did a ballpoint pen and it didn't show up, and so that worked out. So I usually use a marker when marking patterns on faux fur because that shows up the best, but this fabric was too thin. So I did some of this off camera just because it takes forever and I didn't want to have so much footage to go through. So here I am hemming the neckline. And then I am about to sew the shoulder seams, checking that they fit, pinning them together. And I hand sewed a lot of this dress, pretty much all of it I think, except for the side seams, because it was so tiny. I was worried that I couldn't get the level of accuracy I needed with a sewing machine, because I am a stronger hand sewer than I am a machine sewer. So I stuck with mostly hand sewing, which worked out just fine. I hand sewed the shoulder of the sleeve to the shoulder of the main garment. I did that to both sides. I used a white thread. I kind of liked how it gave it a sort of handmade feel because Kiki is from kind of like a small town. I imagined a lot of her clothes would probably be handmade, and so if you see that hand stitching, it gives it more of a handmade feel rather than a thread that blends exactly in. So I did machine sew the sides together and I put the dress on her. And it looks super cute, and here I am trimming and adding the inner ears and the paw pads. I trimmed the hair first to sort of embed the inner ear into the outer ear, and I did the same thing for the paw pads. And then I flipped her over for the bottom paw pads. I initially, in my illustration, had given her little shoes, but after I gave her these paw pads, I decided against the shoes because her legs were a little wider than I anticipated in my illustration. They're still really cute, but I thought the paw pads would be a nicer detail rather than worrying too much about the shoes. Then I trimmed up some of the dress inner seams that were hanging out. Here I am working on her little satchel. You don't recognize this felt. It is from one of my DIY no-sew plush fails. I'll link those in the description as well if you want to check those out. Last month I did 2 DIY no-sew plush making videos. I learned a lot from each, and I kind of proved to myself and to others that it's a little harder than a lot of people make it look. It doesn't always work out, but it was fun and I definitely learned a lot. So here I am stitching up the bag. So my original intention was to do a blanket stitch, but then I completely forgot how to do a blanket stitch, and then I started doing it wrong, and then I just decided that I was going to sew it up just with a regular stitch like the hem, so it kind of mimics that. And then here I am sewing up Jiji. Little Jiji goes in her little satchel, so I had to make him super tiny, but I still wanted to stuff him. So I sewed up half of him and then put stuffing in his little ear and all the little crevices. And then I continued to finish sewing him up. Again, just sort of a running stitch, nothing too fancy, but I did make sure I matched the thread to his body because I didn't want you to see the seams on him because he's supposed to be a living creature and not a garment. Stuffed him a little bit more because I didn't want him to be super flat. Give him a little bit of width dimension, and then I sewed up the little hole that was left from when I switched thread. I'm going to glue on his eyes, just felt eyes, and I used some paint to give him his little cheeks like in my illustration. and I used a shish kebab skewer as like the pointy end. And so I had to do a couple layers because it is a color on black and that's sometimes difficult for it to show up. I tested his eyes, gave him eyes, my cat jumped on the table, and I had to keep him away because I didn't want him to ruin it. But then he fits in his bag and he's done. I had to do the eyes twice because my initial idea was to attach the paper to the back and then do like I had done in some of the others where I use felt to create a rim around the eyes to make them stand out a little bit more. So I cut a long rectangle of felt, glued it down the center, and I had made sure I cut it long enough so I could use it for both eyes. The nose and the cheeks, and then I decided, oh no, that eye is like way too big and forceful. So I started over with some new cabochons. I'll use those eyes eventually or use them in one of my classes. I didn't need something so harsh, so I played around a lot with the placement because there's like a cuteness ratio, and then I glued her eyes down, glued her nose, glued her cheeks. Stay tuned for her final reveal. I'm still judging her a little bit. I added a mouth, spoiler alert, so she's not completely done, but there will be a final reveal video this month, unlike last month where I said there was going to be a final reveal video and there wasn't. I did reveal them on Instagram, so if you follow along there, you will definitely see all the finished product.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, monsters, dolls, or fun crafts, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow along on social media for all the creepy crawly fun. And until next time, stay spooky, friends!